Hi guys, you're watching Nicole. I'm part of Let's Player Ultimate, but I'm reading a Creepypasta, and Dylan's here too.
Hi.
I'm reading Ben Drowned. It's a really, really good story. I'd give credit, but I don't know the person who wrote it. Okay, I need your help with this. This is not a pasta. This is a long read, but I feel like my safety or well-being could very well depend on this. This is video game related. Specifically Majora's Mask, and this is the creepiest shit that's ever happened to me in my entire life. Having said that, I recently moved into my dorm room as a sophomore in college, as a friend of mine gave me his old Nintendo 64 to play. I was stoked, to say the least. I could finally play all those video games with my youth that I hadn't touched in a decade. His Nintendo 64 came with one yellow controller and a rather shoddy copy of Super Smash Bros. While beggars can't be choosers, needless to say, it didn't take long till I became bored of beating up level 9 CPUs. That weekend I decided to drive around a few neighborhoods about 20 minutes or so off campus, hitting up the local garage sales, hoping to score on some good deals from ignorant people. Or parents, sorry. I ended up picking up a copy of Pokemon Stadium, GoldenEye, fuck yeah, F-Zero, and 2 other controllers for $2. Satisfied, I began to drive out of the neighborhood when one last house caught my attention. I still have no idea why it did. There were no cars, and there were only tables set up with random junk on it. But something drew me there. I usually trust my gut on these things, so I got out of the car and was greeted by an old man. His outward appearance was, for lack of a better word, displeasing. It was odd. If you asked me to tell you why I thought he was displeasing, I couldn't really pinpoint anything. There was just something odd about him that put me on the edge. I can't explain it. All I can tell you is that if it wasn't for the middle of the afternoon and there were other people within shouting distance, I wouldn't even thought of approaching him. He flashed a crooked smile at me and asked what I was looking for, and immediately I noticed that he must be blind in one of his eyes. His right eye had glazed over. Look about it. I forced myself to look in his left eye instead, trying not to offend, and asked him if he had any old video games. I was wondering how I could politely ask him from the situation when he told me he had no idea what a video game was. But to my surprise, he said he had a few ones in his old box. He assured me that he'd be back in a jiffy and turned to head back into the garage. As I watched him hobble away, I couldn't help but notice what he was selling on his table. Littered across the table were peculiar paintings, various artworks that looked like ink blots that a psychiatrist might show you. Curious, I looked through them. It was obviously no one was visiting this guy's garage sale. There weren't any aesthetically pleasing. As I came to the last one, for some reason it almost looked like Majora's Mask. The same heart-shaped body with little spikes protruding outward. Initially, I just thought that since I was secretly hoping to find that game at these garage sales, some Freudian bullshit was protecting itself into the ink blots. But given the events happened afterward, I'm not so sure how now. Yeah. I should have asked the man about it. I wish I would have asked the man about it. After staring at the Majora-shaped blot, I looked up and the old man was suddenly there again, arm's length in front of me, smiling at me. I'll admit I jumped out of reflex, and I laughed nervously as he handed me a Nintendo 64 cartridge. It was the gray color, except that someone had written Majora in black print marker. I got butterflies in my stomach and realized what a coincidence this was, and thanked him and asked how much he wanted for it. The old man smiled at me and told me I could have it for free, that it belonged to a kid about my age who didn't live here anymore. There was something about how that man phrased that, but I didn't really pay much attention to them. I was too caught up in only not finding the game, but getting it for free. Oh, Jesus Christ. I reminded myself to be a bit skeptical, since this looked like a pretty shaded cartridge, and there's no guarantee it would work. But then the optimist inside me interjected that maybe it was some sort of beta or pirated version of the game, and that was all I needed to be back on Cloud 9. I thanked the man and smiled at me and wished well, saying, "Goodbye then." At least that's what it sounded like to me. All the way in the car ride home, I had a nagging doubt that the man had said something else. My fears were confirmed when I booted up. Sorry. What? Who uses that word? When I booted up the game, to my surprise, it worked just fine. And there was one save file simply named Ben. "Goodbye, Ben." He was saying, "Goodbye, Ben." I felt bad for the man, obviously a grandparent and obviously going senile, and I, for some reason or other, reminded him of his grandson Ben.
I can read. We can take turns.
Alright, go ahead.
Alright. Out of curiosity, I looked at the save file. Eyeballing it, I could tell that he was pretty far in the game. He had almost all of the masks and 3/4 of the bosses. I noticed that he had used an owl statue to save his game. He was on day 3, and by the Stone Tower Temple, with hardly an hour left before the moon would crash. I remember thinking that it was a shame that he had come so close to beating the game, but he never finished it. I made a new file named Link out of tradition and started the game, ready to relive my childhood. For such a shady-looking game cartridge, I was impressed at how smoothly it ran. Literally, just like a retail copy of the game, save for a few minor hiccups here and there, like textures being what they shouldn't be, random flashes of cutscenes at odd intervals, but nothing too bad. However, the only thing that was a little unnerving was that at times the MCPs would call me Link and other times they would call me Ben. I figured it was just a bug, a fluke in the programming that causing off files to get mixed up or something. It did kinda creep me out though after a while, and it was around after that I had beaten the Woodfall Temple that I regrettably went into the save files and deleted Ben. I had intended to preserve the file just out of respect for the original game's owner. It's not like I needed 2 files anyway. Hoping that would solve the problem. It did, and it didn't. Now NCPs wouldn't call me anything where my name should be in the dialogue, there was just a blank space. My save file was still called Link though. Frustrated and with homework to do, I put the game down for a day. I started playing the game again last night, getting the Lens of Truth and working my way towards completing the Snowhead Temple. Now some of you hardcore Majora Mask players know about the 4th day glitch. For those you don't, can Google it, but the gist of it is at the right as the clock is about to hit 0000 on the final day. You talk to the astronomer and look through the telescope, and if you time it right, the countdown disappears and you essentially have another day to finish whatever you were doing. Deciding to do the glitch to try to finish the Snowhead Temple, I happened to get it right on the first try, and the time counter at the bottom disappeared. However, I pressed B to exit the telescope. Instead of being greeted by the astronomer, I found myself in Majora's boss fight room at the end of the game, the trippy boxed-in arena, staring at Skull Kid hovering above me. There was no sound, just him floating in the air above me, and the background music, which was for the area but still creepy. Immediately my palms began to sweat, and this was definitely not normal. Skull Kid never appeared here. I tried moving around the air, no matter where I went, Skull Kid would always be facing me, looking at me, not saying anything. Nothing would happen though. This kept up for about 60 seconds. I thought the game had bugged or something, but then I was beginning to doubt that very much.
I can read now if you want.
It's okay, I'm enjoying this.
Okay.
I was about to reach for the reset button when text appeared on my screen. You're sure why? You are not sure why. but you have apparently had a reservation. I immediately recognized that text. You get that message when you get the room key from a Jew at the Stock Pot Inn. But why was it playing here? I refused to entertain the notion that it was almost as if the game was trying to communicate with me. I started to navigate the room again, testing to see if there was some sort of trigger that enabled me to interact with something here. Then I realized how stupid I was to even think that someone could reprogram the game like this. It was absurd. Sure enough, 15 seconds later, another message appeared on the screen, and again like the first, it was already a pre-existing phrase. Go to the lair of the temple's boss. Yes or no? I paused for a second, contemplating I should press on how the game would react. I realized that I couldn't select no. Taking a deep breath, I pressed yes, and the screen faded to white with the words Dawn of a New Day with the subtext 11111111 beneath it. Where I was ported to fill me with the most intense sense of dread and impending fear I have ever experienced. The only way I can describe the way I felt here is having this feeling of inexplicable depression on a profound scale. I am normally not a depressed person, but the way I felt here was a feeling that I didn't even know existed. It was such a twisted, powerful presence that seemed to wash over me. I appeared in some kind of weird Twilight Zone version of Clock Town. I walked out of the clock tower, as you normally do when you start from day one, only to find that all the inhabitants were gone. Usually with the fourth day glitch, you can find the gods and the dogs that runs around outside the tower. This time they were all gone. What replaced them was the ominous feeling that there was something out there, in the same area as me, and that it was watching me. I had 4 hearts to my name and the hero's bow, but at this point I wasn't even considered for my avatar. I felt that I personally was in some kind of danger. Perhaps the most chilling thing was the music. It was the song of healing, ripped straight through the game itself, but played in reverse. The music would get louder, building up so if you should expect something to pop out at you, but nothing ever did, and the constant loop began to wear on my mental state. Even now and then I would hear the faint laugh of the happy mask salesman in the background, just quiet enough so that I wasn't sure if I was hearing things, but not loud enough to keep me determined to find him. I looked in all 4 zones of Clocktown, only to find nothing. No one, no textures were missing. West Clocktown had me walking on air, and the entire area felt broken, hopelessly broken, as the reverse song of healing repeated for what must have been for the 50th time. I just remember standing in the middle of South Clocktown, realized that I've never felt so alone in a video game before. Why don't you hit the off button? That wasn't part of the story. That was my own. As I walked through the ghost town, I don't know whether it was the combination of the out-of-place textures or the atmosphere and the haunting melody of once peaceful and soothing song but butchered and distorted. But I was literally on the verge of tears, and I had no idea why. I hardly ever cry. Something had gripped me here, and this powerful sense of depression that was both foreign and crippling. I tried leaving Clocktown, but every time I attempted to zone out, the screen would fade to black and I would just zone into another part of Clocktown. I tried playing my ocarina. I wanted to escape. I did not want to be here. But every time I played the Song of Time or the Song of Soaring, it would only say, "Your next notes echo far," but nothing happens. By this point it was obvious the game didn't want me to leave. But I had no idea why it was keeping me here. I didn't want to go inside the buildings. I felt that I would be too vulnerable there, or whatever I was terrified of. I don't know why, but I came up with the idea that maybe if I drowned myself at the laundry pool, I could spawn somewhere else and leave this place. After I zoned in... Don't do it, man! It's not the way out! As I zoned in and ran towards the pool, that's when it happened. Link grabbed his head, and the screen flashed for a brief moment of the happy mask salesman smiling at me. Not Link. Me with Skull Kid's scream playing in the background, and when the screen returned, I was staring at the Link statue from playing the Song of Elegy of Emptiness. I screamed as the thing just stared back at me with that haunting facial expression. I turned around and ran out and back into South Clocktown, and to my horror, the fucking statue followed me in the only way I can compare this to like the weeping angels from Doctor Who. Cameo! Every so often, at random intervals, the animation would play the statue appearing behind me. But it was like the thing was chasing me. Or I didn't even want to fucking say it, haunting me. But at this point, I was at the verge of hysterics. I did not even once did the thought of turning off the console occur to me. I don't know why. What? I was so wrapped up in it, the terror felt also real. I tried to shake the statue, but it would literally appear right behind me every single time. Link started to begin to make weird animations I had never seen him do before. He would flail his arms around or spasm randomly, and the screen would cut to the happy mask salesman smiling again for a brief moment before I would face to face with that fucking statue again. I ended up running into the Swordmaster's dojo and run to the back. Didn't know why, but in my panic I just wanted some kind of assurance that I'm not alone here. To my dismay, I found no one. But as I turned to leave, the statue cornered me in the cubby in the back. I tried attacking the statue with my sword, but to no avail. Confused and backed into a corner, I just stared at the statue waiting for it to kill me. Suddenly the screen flashed again to the happy mask salesman, and Link turned to face my screen. Standing upright, mirroring the statue, looking at me along with his copy, literally staring at me. Whenever was left of the fourth wall was completely shattered while I ran out of the dojo, terrified. Suddenly the game warped me to an underground tunnel, and the reverse Song of Healing weird up again. As I was given a brief moment of rest before the statue started appearing behind me again. This time aggressively, I could only take a few steps before it would summon behind me again. I hurriedly made my way out of the tunnel and appeared in South Clocktown. As I ran aimlessly in a sheer panic, suddenly a re-dead screamed, and the screen faded to black as the dawn of a new day, and a whole bunch of lines appeared again. You want to go again, Nicole?
Sure. Where are we at? I mean, I'm listening to you, but I can't.
We are right at the screen faded.
Alright. The screen faded in, and I was standing on top of Clock Tower, with Skull Kid hovering over me, silent. I looked up, and the moon was back, looming just meters above my head. But the Skull Kid just stared at me, hauntingly, with that fucking mask. A new song was playing. Are you okay?
Go ahead.
Where am I? Okay. The Stone Tower Temple theme played in reverse. In some sort of desperate attempt, I equipped my bow and fired off a shot of at the Skull Kid, and it actually hit him, and he played an animation of him reeling back. Dylan, are you okay?
Mm-hmm.
I fired again on the third arrow, and a text box appeared saying, "That won't do you any good, hee hee." And I was picked up off the ground, levitated upwards on my back, and then Link screamed as he burst into flames, instantly killing him. I didn't think Link talked, but okay. I jumped when this happened. I had never seen this move used by anyone in the game, and Skull Kid himself didn't have any moves. As the death screen played, my lifeless body still burning, the Skull Kid laughed, and the screen faded to black, only to have me reappear in the same place. I decided to charge him, but the same thing happened. Link's body was lifted off the ground, and by some unknown force, he immediately burst in flames again, killing him. This time during the death screen, the faint sounds of the reverse Song of Healing could be heard. On my third and final try, I saw that there was no music playing this time, and all there was eerie silence. I remembered in the original encounter with Skull Kid, you were supposed to use the ocarina, to either travel back in time or summon the giants. I attempted to play the Song of Time, but before I could hit the last notes, Link's body horrifically exploded into flames and he died. As the death screen neared to its end, it began to chug, as if the cartridge was trying to process a lot of something. When the screen came to, it was the same scene as before, the first 3 times, except this time Link was lying on the ground dead, in a position that I had never seen him before. His head tilted towards the camera, and the Skull Kid was floating above him. I couldn't move, I couldn't push any buttons. All I could do was stare at Link's dead body. After about 30 seconds of this, the game simply fades out with a message. You've met with a terrible fate, haven't you? Before kicking you out to the title screen. Upon getting back to the title screen again, I noticed my save file was no longer there. Instead of Link, it was replaced with your turn. It had 3 hearts, 0 masks, and no items. I selected your turn, and immediately when I did, I returned to the clock tower rooftop scene of my Link dead and the Skull Kid hovering over it, with the Skull Kid laughing and looping again and again. I quickly hit reset button, and when the game booted back up again, there was one more save file added, your turn, then entitled Ben. Ben's save file is right where I deleted it, at Stone Tower Temple with the moon almost crashing. I turned off the game at that point. I'm not superstitious, but this is way too fucked up for me. I haven't played it at all today. Hell, I didn't even get any sleep last night. I kept hearing the reverse Song of Healing in my head, and just remembering the sense of dread I felt exploring Clocktown. I drove back to the old man's house today for some questions with a buddy of mine. No way I was going there alone, only to find that there's a for sale sign in the front yard. When I rang the doorbell, no one was home. So now I'm back here writing down the rest of my thoughts and recording what happened. Sorry if this has some grammatical errors and whatnot. I'm running on no sleep here. I'm terrified of this game. Even more... Where is it? Oh. Sorry, I lost my place.
That's my fault, sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm like, even more. Hold on. Even more, so now that I really relived it a second time writing all this down. But I feel like there's still more to it that meets the eye, and that there's something calling me to investigate this further. I think Ben is something in this equation, but I don't know what, and if I could get a hold of this old man, I would be able to find some answers. I need another day or so to recuperate before tackling this game again. It's already taken a toll on my sanity. I feel like, but next time I do this, I'm going to record my footage all the way through. The idea to record only came to me towards the end, so you're going to see the last few minutes of what I saw, including Skull Kid and the elegy statue, but it's on YouTube here. We should probably put the link in that below. I'm going to stay in this thread for a little while longer before I fall asleep to answer any questions you guys might have, or hopefully listen to your ideas and theories and help me shed some light into this game thing. Maybe things I should try to do. I'm going to play Ben's file tomorrow and see what happens. Maybe I was supposed to do that all along. I don't believe in this paranormal shit, but this is a little fucked up. Maybe this Ben guy is just a really good hacker programmer. I just don't want to think about the alternatives he isn't.
Alright, I think we can end the first episode there. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed our little reading of our Creepypasta. We'll probably do the next one soon.